introduce, my name is David Carlisle, and I'm the current interim chief and executive director of the Department of Public Safety here at USC.
Yay!
So very nice to meet you, and thank you, Gamma Phi Beta, for the invitation. It's nice to be here in person. It's nice to be outdoors and to see people face to face. I've been with the Department of Public Safety about 15 years, following a career in municipal law enforcement. Many of our personnel have prior experience in municipal, like Captain Palmer is retired LAPD. So we have tons of experience in our department. And first of all, Ed Palmer is in charge of our operations division. So anybody you see driving by in a uniform answers to Ed. Ed is also a USC alum.
Whoa!
I am a USC alum.
Fight on!
And Elizabeth Carreño Diaz, who is the director of our community outreach department, is currently in the final stages. She's just loving every minute of completing her doctoral dissertation. So,
wow, impressive.
Good luck with that committee. What I found over the years is quite often a lot of parents don't really understand DPS, who we are, what we do, where we are. I didn't even understand that when I came to work here, coming from a municipality. But so give you a little background on DPS. Department of Public Safety is one of the largest campus safety departments in the nation. I think the only department at a university that even rivals us anywhere near the number of personnel we have is University of Penn. But we have well over 300 full-time personnel working around the clock, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with the primary purpose of keeping our campus and our campus community safe, primarily for our students, so that they can go to class, they can study, they can enjoy the social events offered by the university, and be free from worry about crime. And I think we do a pretty darn good job. So, thanks to people like Liz and Ed. We have, people may not know this, we have a 24-hour communication center equipped with the latest in technology. Even the LAPD comes to DPS to use our camera surveillance system. The entire area surrounding USC, particularly north and west of campus, even if you don't see a DPS patrol officer driving by, there are cameras everywhere, 24 hours a day. We have 3 to 5 people at all times trained to monitor our camera system to watch the community, to keep our community safe. So think about DPS, one of the largest campus safety departments in the nation, and understand here's one of our campus safety partners flying over as we speak. Thank you for coordinating that, Ed. No, it's not. I don't know who it is. Okay, that's our Aero Bureau, DPS Aero Bureau. So we may have somebody parachute out just to join us here on the, maybe not. Anyway, my point was, you have DPS on and off campus. We're not just on the campus proper. I mean, our patrol units driving by. We're about 2.5 square miles surrounding the University Park campus. Why? That's where our students are. The bulk of our students are off campus. There are probably 5,000 to 6,000 on campus, but there are thousands more around campus on places like 28th Street and in the community. So that's where we want to be. We want to be easily accessible. We want to interact with our students, get to know them on a first name basis, and be their campus safety partners. So think of DPS as like the primary layer of security for this area. We are in the jurisdiction of the Los Angeles Police Department, part of their Southwest Division. So you will see them in the neighborhood, but quite frankly, there's more of us, because we can focus our resources here where they need to be, where our students are. Ed has a great relationship, being a retiree from the LAPD. He knows everybody. And so if we need extra LAPD resources, whether it's detective support, Metropolitan Division support, more officers walking a footbeat as they do here, Ed makes a call and they come. We have a great relationship, so they are our campus partner. But when you think of who's number one first call, we tell our students, call DPS. We're going to get there more quickly. So you've got DPS, like the first layer. You've got the LAPD. We are in their jurisdiction. They are also here. We have something called the University Park Task Force assigned to our community. We have the vast camera surveillance system. It costs a lot of money, but it's extraordinarily valuable. And we have what's called the Yellow Jacket program. Now, we have every afternoon, starting at 4 o'clock in the afternoon until 6 o'clock in the morning, basically all hours of darkness, we station 40 of those security ambassadors, as they're called, out here on 28th Street in strategic locations north of campus based on where students live, student foot patterns, and where crimes occur, to serve as a symbol of public safety and sense of comfort to our students. And I know they're very popular with the parents. So we call them security ambassadors, but because they wear bright yellow jackets, everybody calls them Yellow Jacket. They are not DPS. That is contracted security that we hired to supplement the rest of DPS. So DPS, LAPD, camera surveillance system, Yellow Jackets, all that combined together, community outreach, forming partnerships, really, we think successful. And we've had places like the University of Texas, I can't remember, what's the name of their parent group? It's a funny name.
Longhorns. Safe Longhorns.
Safe Horns came to DPS, looked at the program we had for safety with these various components, including the Yellow Jackets, and the parents are going to have that implemented at UT. So we like the fact that campuses across the nation have looked at us to how to do public safety right. So life on the row and how DPS sees it. Life on the row, as we all know, is the center of social life here at USC and is a challenge for us, quite frankly. We spend a lot of time, particularly with our freshmen, trying to educate. I was telling the story earlier. I would often do these orientation sessions in Bovard, get 700 students and parents, several sessions, and I would speak about the resources available to our students, and I'd talk about what they can do to stay safe, and I'd look out in the audience and all the students are like this, and the parents are like this. So I would always conclude that presentation with, and I say this as a perspective as a former USC parent. My son was a member of the now deceased Phi Kappa Psi, so I know what that looks like from a parent perspective. I would tell people, you want to know which is a fraternity and which is a sorority if you've never been to USC? The ones with the grass lawn, sorority. The ones with beer cans, trash cans, and dirt, fraternity. And his was no different. But I saw what life was like from his perspective. He knew he was never to come to the attention of DPS. His dad was here. He's also living proof. He's living successfully in New York, that you can get a good job with a degree in philosophy. Said, what are you going to do with that, son? It teaches you good critical thinking skills. I said, is that why you chose it? No, I couldn't think of anything else. But he's doing well. Happy to say that. But one of the key components, and what I've said many, many times is, if you hear nothing else, parents and students, before you leave this presentation, in my experience with both the parent, municipal police officer, and experience 15 years here at DPS, the most important factor in you staying safe at USC are the choices you make. You need to be our campus safety partner. Remember, well over 3,000 new freshmen every year that are going to make the same mistakes that some of them did in every previous year, over and over and over. So we start the orientation and the safety process by the time they're seniors and they understand living on their own, what the downfalls, pitfalls are, and what are the great things to do, they graduate. Every year, 3,000 more plus to educate. So if we can get our students to remember that if you go to a social event on the road and something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. You go with a trusted friend, particularly always travel to one of these social events with a friend who isn't drinking. You make smart choices. We have a system called Trojan Cares for Trojans, TC4T. If you have a friend in need, and we have seen more and more, and I don't know if it's because of COVIDs and students locked in, more and more students in psychological and emotional distress. We have trained officers especially to deal with students suffering from trauma, and we are using them all the time. all the time. It is stretching our resources. We're going to train more people, and we work very closely with other campus departments to assist these students. But the idea is you take advantage of the resources here. Report to Trojan Care for Trojans if you see a student in distress. And I give practical advice like never go to a fraternity party on the row and take a drink out of a cooler. We have had, as many of you know, some significant allegations of drugging. Students going to parties on the row or other areas in the USC area becoming deathly ill, or they don't remember and they believe they have been drugged. The challenge for us is, in most cases, we don't have physical evidence. We don't have a blood test or a urine test or something that we can show to the Los Angeles Police Department to aid in a prosecution. Most all of the cases are allegations, and it's very, very difficult to address that problem except through, for us, education, prevention. Don't let that happen. We have some recent cases where we're presenting to the LAPD. All of our criminal cases are investigated and handled with assistance from us, but they are the prosecuting agency. It's a real challenge because it keeps happening. So I'll answer your question with that. I have to be very careful. I don't want to say anything to victim blame. But what I'm telling our students is, don't become a victim. Listen to those things, those tips I have made. I can tell you, virtually all of the sexual assaults reported to DPS involve two acquaintances, both of them drinking. And that makes it very difficult for us to pursue these cases when it's one person's word against the other. Very difficult. So as I want to emphasize, is don't let it get to that point. When in doubt, call a friend, call DPS, all kinds of services and resources here. Nobody surpasses us in the resources and that we have from a public safety standpoint, a health standpoint, and our mental health resources are really growing and important to take advantage of. I tell most people, if you listen to what we say, be our campus safety partners, you're going to have a wonderful time at USC. Most students don't have any trouble. Okay, now my son said, Dad, you're not a real USC student until your bike is stolen.
Right.
And Dad, I became a real USC student. I remember I said, you got your bike stolen? Did you lock it? Well, no. So anyway, it's a great place. I'm going to ask Captain Palmer to come up here because there are some questions about, we won't take too much of your time, about social events and how that's regulated on the road. So I'm going to turn it over to Ed. And if you have any community outreach questions or how to prepare for your dissertation, Liz is here too. Captain Palmer.
I don't know what I could really say to follow that. As introduced, I'm Ed Palmer. I'm the commanding officer of patrol operations here. I grew up about 6 miles southwest of here in South Central Los Angeles. I went to Crenshaw High School locally. I never thought I'd get a degree from USC, but now I have a master's from USC.
Oh, wow.
I too have a son that went here, and he didn't participate in the fraternity stuff at all. not at all. I have a son that's a junior at St. John Bosco High School in Bellflower.
Go Braves!
Yeah. Go Braves. And I'm trying to convince him to come here. He's somehow or another got LMU in his mind, and I'm like, no, you need to go to USC.
Yeah.
So, how did I become the fun stopper? So I've been here about 8 years. That's after a 29-year career at LAPD. Yeah, I started when I was 12. And I retired as a lieutenant and came here as a captain. And I think when it really came to fruition for me, I came to patrol operations, and they were having about 8 events a night on the row, which was more than we could control and more than they could control. So we had some change in administration, and I said, you can have 4 events per night, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. So right away it was like, who is this Palmer guy? And then the idea of tailgates during game days was also a problem. And a tailgate to me, Chief Carlisle, and probably to the rest of you, looks one way. A tailgate on the row was a full-on party. And so I think the first time they had, they said, well, how many do you want? And I think it was a game against Western Kentucky. And they said, the fraternity houses said, we want 10. So we tried 10. 3 houses actually lined up and had a party together. And one of the sisters on from USG said she was watching as there was a bouncy house that they had, and guys were jumping from the roof onto the bouncy house as the house was deflating. So I said, you can have 5. And surprisingly, I got a lot of calls from parents. What is wrong with you? What do you have against Greek life? And I'm like, aren't your kids here to get an education? Yes, but one dad called me, he says, well, I don't understand. I said, I'll tell you what, go to YouTube, look at a USC Homecoming 2016. It's about 3 minutes. And he called me back and he said, okay, I get it. So what we're really trying to do is engage in a partnership with the students and student affairs to get students to be more accountable for their own events. And once they accept that responsibility, then we can have a partnership. So I kind of feel almost like a dad. Yeah, you can have it as long as you can manage it. But if you can't manage it, then you can't have it. And we come out, and to a large extent, I mean, you look, you've got 19 and 20-year-olds trying to control 19, 20, 21-year-olds or a little older at an event. And the event gets out of hand, and we show up. We've had a couple noise complaints. Maybe we've got a person who's overly intoxicated or inebriated. And we look at the person who's in charge, the president, the risk manager, vice president. What do you think? Hey, can you help us shut it down? Because it's just gotten too far out of hand. So it's not that we're the party police. We really are trying to work. We have a party response car, which I think our party response car next to our crisis our crisis intervention car is one of the most important jobs we have, because they're really there to keep these events safe and develop a partnership with all of the houses. So when the event's going, if it gets out of hand, they can text these officers, they call them, they say, hey, it's too out of hand, can you come by, can you help us out? So it really works out well. Chief Carlisle mentioned the partnership with LAPD. I don't quite know everybody there, but I do know a lot of people there. My wife still works there, so I can get resources here when we need it. We do have a footbeat that walks. They don't go into the houses. They're not as involved as we are, but they walk a footbeat on 28th Street in the Figueroa corridor on Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights between 7 p.m. and 3 a.m. So we have a lot of resources that are available, but I really want to emphasize the fact that we developed that partnership with FSLD, with Student Affairs, with all of the houses. Every Monday afternoon, there's an accountability meeting where they call in. It's a Zoom meeting. We discuss what went right, what didn't go right, how they can improve for the future. They have to talk to myself. They have to talk to FSLD. They have to talk to Student Affairs and Fire Safety. So it really works out well, so that the same mistakes are not repeated.
I suppose we had a question.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm old, so I was like, I'm going to forget. I'm going to try to keep it up here. The question I was going to ask you was, if someone thinks something's been put in their drink, how long do they have to get a test done so that there is evidence that it happened?
That's the question is.
Yeah, the question is how long do they have if they think they've been drugged to actually
urine or blood test,
to get a test?
Yeah, like how long do they have?
It depends on the drug.
I mean, what's the main drug? You hear it's the roofied or whatever.
Yeah, Rufinol is, but there are other drugs that have also allegedly been used. I said again, I can't remember a case where we've actually gotten proof, because most students are ill or intoxicated. They'll go home with a friend and go to sleep, and they'll wake up the next day and say, I don't remember what happened. I think I might have been drugged. most all cases, they don't then go to the doctor. Last week, we had an allegation where the student had one drink out of a cooler, a bucket, and said it tastes like lemonade, and within a few hours was deathly ill and remained ill till the next day. Went to student health, and they did a blood draw, blood and urine, and the physician said, we're going to do a scan for drugs, but because it's been 11 hours and because you were vomiting over and over, I don't know if it'll still be there. 4 to 6 hours typically, particularly for opioids and some others, 4 to 6 hours, you're going to be able to see that. So it kind of depends, but in almost all cases, that doesn't happen. They don't think about it at the time to do that. So we end up, making some presumptions and moving from there. It's a very challenging situation. That's why I talk about make sure you're with a friend, preferably have a girlfriend that is not consuming alcohol. Keep an eye out on each other. Don't ever drink out of that bucket. They just don't do it. And in some cases, I think actually we have freshman women who are very petite. They don't like to drink a lot of beer, it's too filling, but if they have 2 or 3 shots of tequila and they think they've been drugged, well, they have, with alcohol.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's challenging. We are supportive. Our student support services are very supportive of the student. But when people say, why haven't you identified and prosecuted or kicked out of school those guys having that party? Because we don't have the proof. We don't have the proof. We have allegations, but we don't have the proof. And we're trying to work with LAPD. LAPD is very busy, and so they would have to, and this is really impractical in the real world, to assign an undercover person who looks like a college student and go in and try and surreptitiously collect a sample and have it analyzed. There are warrant issues, interview issues. It's really impractical. So what we try to preach is prevention, and don't let your friends make a mistake. So that's kind of the answer. I hope that answered your question.
No, it did.
It's tough. It's tough. Sooner the better.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions? I have one last ask, and one of our biggest problems here at USC is theft of unattended property. And I always say this: I don't know where students come from that they can lay a laptop, earphones, iPad, your car keys, leave it there for 2 hours and come back and it's still there. When I retire, that's where I want to live, but you can't do it here. So please please don't lay it down. Don't lay it down. There are a lot of, we were discussing the unhoused earlier. There are a lot of unhoused people that walk the streets and they're just looking for an opportunity for something that's left out, unlocked, not secured. I mean, even the houses, some of the houses are trying to, they'll feed guys, and guys will think, well, I'm now a member of their community and I'll just go in and help myself. So please. Yeah.
I have a question. So recently my daughter's parking at, I think, Shrine, whatever the USC parking is, and her car got broken into. Nothing that we know of was taken, but it was still broken into, and we got a call from you guys to go over there. And they had mentioned that you guys, or whoever was there, weren't thrilled with the kids still parking in that particular garage because I don't know if it's not controlled as much, or you get Shrine, is using it. There's a lot of coming and going. It's not just particularly secure. Is there issues with that parking? Do you have better places that you would recommend?
I mean, parking on campus is something that a lot of people don't like to do because it's costly, but that's actually the best place to park. And I always say that USC transportation that manages the parking, we don't manage parking services, but they're like the mafia. So to give you an idea, that Chief Carlisle gets a take-home car, I get a take-home car.
Tell everybody.
That USC gives us, we pay to park on their lot.
Really?
Yeah, it's a money-making operation.
But this is
They park
USC
their
parking.
car.
He
So you're-
pays to park their car. I
Wow.
pay to park their car.
But you're talking about within the USC,
within
like
the USC.
the,
You mean
the
on
gates.
campus?
Shrine
On
is
campus.
not.
The answer to your question is that shrine parking structure we have been having problems with, and the problem is if people leave something of value visible, that will be the target. We've had some catalytic converter thefts where the people go under the car, saw off a catalytic converter. Why do they do it? It contains precious metals that they can recycle. But mainly, if they see a little cash, change, purse, or anything left in the car, it only takes a thief a moment to say, use a piece of porcelain from a spark plug, break the window, they're gone. So we were just talking about this yesterday about getting our officers on bicycles to go through that lot as much as we can. We put surveillance cameras on it, and then we're working with transportation to put a person in the booth for longer hours. And the yellow jackets I talked about,
Mhm.
we're going to move one over there and have them start walking up and down. Is it an unsafe parking lot? No. But in terms of violent crime or assaults on people, no. But if valuables are left in cars, we've had some problems, yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you for that.
Anybody?
Yes, ma'am.
So what do you do about the homeless around here? Do you have to move them out? What's the rules? My
We
daughter
try
just
and
says
bust
she's
them to
scared.
Malibu.
No!
Thanks.
Or the Republic of Santa Monica.
I know he knows. We talked about it.
It's a very difficult thing. I'd say that during even the pandemic, about 85% of our patrol response involved calls with unhoused individuals in the area. So it's an ever ongoing thing. We arrest the same people about 85% of the time.
Of course.
And so, it's a problem you can't arrest your way out of. They don't do any jail time. And during the pandemic, they weren't even keeping people for minor theft or burglary. They weren't even staying. So it's a thing where we have to be more visible, more communicative. They like to operate under the fact that they're anonymous. And so when you get to know them and you see them and you say, hey, Dave, how are you? And they're like, this guy knows my name. It lends a little bit more to it. So it's several different strategies. Sometimes Liz's group, they will get them medicine, sometimes arrange for them housing. We approach it from a variety of different ways.
This question is the old Vagabond or the old hotel, is that for homeless?
It was, but that's since been shut down, and it's going to be. It actually.
It's going to be a beautiful hotel.
Yeah, it's actually
Yep.
headed toward that.
Good.
Yeah, they're rebuilding the whole thing. The plans are online. You can see them. It's like literally a gorgeous structure, kind of like Gateway, and it's going to be stores on the bottom and probably a big name hotel on the top.
I thought it might have been like a Marriott Suites or something like that. A couple of comments. One, because people are not being kept in custody, so that means more criminals on the street, more problems. People are no longer kept in state-funded mental health facilities who are mentally disordered. More homeless on the streets. I'm no expert, but those I know are facts, and we all know there's been an explosion in the number of homeless. Like Ed said, we go with different, like a multi-pronged approach when they're in the USC area of how to help them move. We have something that Liz has been involved in organizing called the Street Medicine Program, where we get, I believe, physician assistants or RAs a couple days a week going out to these camps to offer medical help. There are housing options that we bring to people, but I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Liz, the majority don't want our help. They like living where they live, coming and going as they want. So at some point we will come in and we'll post signs that say there will be a cleaning scheduled day after tomorrow. You have to move. This will be steam cleaned. Anything left here will be removed. Quite often that's mostly true, and they move. But we have had success when we do come in and clean. We just had an incident on there's an overpass, a pedestrian walkway by the Lorenzo private student housing resort, I call it. But we're getting complaints. The student had to walk the gauntlet of these homeless on that overpass. That's not USC property. Where there's even debate on, is that city property or state property? Nonetheless, we took it on, and we got involved with the city and the county, and fortunately this group of unhoused people were cooperative, said this is going to all be cleaned, we need to relocate. Somebody said, oh, I'll take that temporary free housing. Others didn't, but within a day it was gone, and now the challenge is to make sure it doesn't come back. But it is a challenge, and as Ed said, get the unhoused walking the alleys here. Some are looking to what they can find in the trash, but if they see a back door open and they can step in and there's a laptop or a backpack, so key to helping us is something simple as lock the doors. Lock the doors. Lock the doors. So a lot of students rent these multi-bedroom houses, not these, but like other private. Nobody locks the front door. They go to their own room, and we have had this happen too often, that a burglar, quite often one of these people from the camp, and sometimes they're not, will let themselves in the front door because it's not locked, help themselves to what they want. Students get up in the morning. Students are at home.
They're sleeping.
They're sleeping. And they get up in the morning. Where's my stuff? Did anybody lock the front door? No. So we actually did like a crime prevention flyer, lock your door. So I
simple.
can't emphasize enough how this prevention and students being our campus safety partner, how important that is. Yes, ma'am.
One last question I have.
Sure.
Do you guys find that you're having more issues, like when the sun goes down, then obviously, in the light of day? And then how did, I see this a lot, but like with time change, right? Where it's like dark at 5 o'clock. So your nights are really long. Do you find an increase in crime with that?
No, actually, we experience a lot of problems early in the morning, between 8 and 10, and then it picks up again at night and then during the later night hours. But there's really no rhyme or reason when you're dealing with the unhoused or the mentally challenged. It's not the same as dealing with a criminal element. The phone snatches have a tendency to happen with juveniles after dark, and they're just trying to grab a phone and then run toward the Rose Garden, which is on the other side of Exposition. But
That's one thing I had mentioned. Ed says, Ed uses this, so I want to steal it, but Ed says, not a mask, but would you walk around like this, not paying attention, holding $1,000 cash in your hand?
No.
Because when you do that, that's kind of the signal you're sending to the thieves. So many of these phone robberies are that, and they go. And we found some of the people stealing these phones and committing these thefts on bicycles. I think our youngest was 9 years old, 9, 11, 14. They're on bikes, and they look for that opportunity. So that's why another thing we preach, pay attention to your surroundings. Yeah, you're not likely to get seriously assaulted or something here, but if you're holding, it's happened right here in the middle of the day, on camera we captured it, holding their phone, they're talking to a friend, man, it's gone. So anyway, I know we're about 11:30.
we really
We'll be happy
appreciate it.
to hang around and answer questions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.